You've probably heard of Google Voice and know it's a great way to get a free, dedicated phone line for your business. But you might be wondering, how do you set it up and what key settings do you need to change to make sure it works right for your business? In this video, I'm gonna go over how I set it up for my rental business and share some of my top tips to get the most out of this powerful tool. Let's dive into it. So real quick, why Google Voice? It's free and you get a dedicated local number. It gets the job done. You get your call, your text, your voicemail, and it's available on all your devices. But before we get started, keep in mind that your Google Voice does need to be attached to a Gmail account. And I highly recommend that you make a separate Gmail account for all your business activities. It doesn't have to be a business Gmail account, but just another Gmail account that doesn't have all your personal stuff in there that you just use for business. If you've seen some of my videos on receipt management or Google Drive and you have a Gmail account already for your business, you could use that same one for your Google Voice, but just make sure it's a separate Gmail account. So let's head over to voice.google.com. When you get here, the first choice you're going to have is whether you want to make a personal account or one for business. For most solo entrepreneurs, or if there's just a couple people in your business, I recommend the for personal use one. The business plan is not free. It starts about $10 a month. You get things like a toll-free number, things like an auto attendant. So you could say, for this service, press 1, for that, press 2, and a couple other things that I feel like are overkill. If you want to go the paid route though, I highly recommend Ring Central. Ring Central gives you much bigger bang for your buck. So I'll throw a link in the description for Ring Central, but if you're a small business and you just want a second number and most of the features in there, the for personal use Google Voice one is fine for most of us. So we're gonna hit for personal use, and then it's gonna ask you web, iOS, or Android. You could use it in any place after you make it, but I always like to make it starting on the computer, so I'm gonna hit web. So after that, it's gonna make you log into a Gmail account. So log into that dedicated Gmail account that you have. So the next thing it's going to do, it's going to have you select your Google Voice number. And for most of us, we want a number that is local. So you could put in either your city or your area code. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. So I am going to go ahead and put it in my city so I could see all the different numbers available. You could peruse through here. Before you select a number, I like just to copy and paste that number into Google and make sure there's not anything crazy associated with it, because it could be somebody's old number. Usually there's not, but let's just copy and paste this in here. I don't really see anything too crazy, but take a look here and select whatever number works for you. I'm going to go ahead and select this top one. So before you complete the setup, it needs to verify that you are a real person. So it'll just send you a quick verification code to your existing personal phone. So throw that number in there. It sent me my code, so I'm going to throw that in there. This is just telling me that the phone number I use for the verification is going to be the one linked to my account. We can change this later if we want to, so let's hit finish. Cool. So now we're in here and technically we have a Google Voice number that's live, but there are some key settings that we need to make sure to set up. So let's dive back in here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn off call screening. So right now, if you call this number, it will say something to the tune of like, state your name and I'll connect you. And it just sounds super unprofessional. So let's go to settings here at the top right. We're going to drop down to calls here and we're going to scroll down and we are going to turn screen calls off. So now this will just ring just like a normal phone. The next thing I like to do is set up the spam call filtering. So I'm going to go to security here and I'm going to go to filter spam calls and text and turn that on. You'll see if this works for you or doesn't work for you. You can adjust it later, but for 95% of the people, you do want that on. So the next set of settings is super important. We're going to make sure we're getting all of our business phone records saved and documented and sent to one location. That's why it was super important to make a dedicated Gmail account just for business. Especially in my case, I run a rental business, so communications with tenants are super important to document. So hopping back in here, we're going to go to messages. We're going to make sure forward messages to email is turned on. It should be turned on by default. So next we're going to hit calls. We'll scroll down here to get email alerts for missed calls. Let's turn that on to make sure all of our missed calls are documented there. Then we're going to go to voicemail. Make sure these settings are turned on. Get voicemail via email. Make sure that's there. And then get voicemail transcripts. So the actual transcripts will be saved in your email. So the next set of settings is a business choice. We're going to make sure the calls are going where we want them to go to and displaying how we want them to display. So most of us will also want these calls forwarded to our cell phone. So let's pop back up and go to account. So under link numbers, whatever number you used to do that verification before will display here. If you want this to be a different number that you want your calls forwarded to, you could hit new link number and then type in a new number and do the whole verification. This number is correct for me, so I'm going to go ahead and go to calls. So you have a choice here. So you can use Google Voice on your computer, and you could use a microphone and make calls from your computer. That might make sense depending on what you're doing, but for most people, including me, I use it exclusively on my cell phone. So I'm going to turn off web here. If you leave web on, when somebody calls you, it's going to both ring your cell phone number and it's going to display a pop-up in your Google Voice browser if you're on the computer. So that's a little confusing for me. So I turn that off. Under call forwarding, make sure this is turned on. And then again, the phone number that you want it to go to is here. A pro tip here, one of the benefits of using Google Voice is if you want your business number to be forwarded to a different cell phone, you can just change it temporarily, especially if you're going on vacation, particularly out of the country. I know I've used that before. So keep that in mind that the number doesn't always have to be forwarded to your cell phone all the time. Another pretty cool feature about Google Voice is you can create a rule. So if you want certain numbers to ring your phone and certain numbers to go straight to voicemail, you can set that up here. You would just hit create rule. You would either search for a contact that you have in here and you have to add the contact. And then once you hit that, you would hit next, and then you can hit whatever action you want. A couple use cases for this is at one point I used a Google Voice number as a dumping number that was a voicemail for people to put in non-urgent maintenance requests. So it never rang and it just left voicemails for people to put in their non-urgent maintenance requests. And then I had that only monitored by my maintenance person. So that might be an example of when you would use that, but I know a lot of people won't really put anything in this custom call forwarding thing. The next thing you have to figure out is when your phone rings, do you want it to display the caller ID of who's calling, like a normal phone, or do you want it to display your Google Voice number? So if it displays the caller ID of who's calling, unfortunately, you won't be able to tell if it's coming into your Google Voice number or if the person's calling your personal cell phone. It'll just ring your cell phone like normal. On the back end, after you get off the call, you could always go and see whether it came in via your phone number or your Google Voice, but when the call initially comes in, you won't know how to answer it. Alternatively, you could have it display your Google Voice number, and that way you know, okay, it's a business call, but you don't know who's calling. So for me personally, I like to leave this off because I do want to know the caller ID of the people who are calling me. I know who I've given my Google Voice number out to, so if I get one of those calls, I answer it a little bit more professional. I'll say something like, Hussein speaking. Otherwise, if it's an unknown call, whether it's coming into my personal or my Google Voice, I'm going to answer it somewhat professional and say, Hussein speaking. So for me, I turn that off, but this is a personal preference on if you for sure want to know if it's coming into your Google Voice or not. So there's one or two more settings to adjust, but I like to do these on my actual phone. So head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and download the Google Voice app. So I have an iPhone, and you can see at the bottom, I have my regular phone app right next to the Google app. So when I want to do a business call, I hit one, and when I want to do a personal call, I hit the other. But let's click in here to Google Voice. The first thing it's going to do is make you sign into the same email account that you set up your Google Voice. So I'm going to sign into that one for me. And it's going to ask me if I want to forward my calls to this number. So I'm going to choose the number that I have in here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the voicemail to create a custom voicemail for my business. So I'm going to go ahead and hit top left, and then I'm going to hit settings. You can see all the settings that we changed on the computer. I'm going to scroll down to voicemail, and I'm going to hit voicemail greeting. So hit record greeting, hit the green button again to record. Hi, thanks for calling Tech Savvy Landlord. Sorry I missed your phone call. If you want to go ahead and leave a message with your name and phone number, I'd appreciate it. This is also a cell phone, so if you want to text this number, you can do that as well. Have a great day. So after that, you can hit save. I want to make sure to name this because you can set multiple greetings. So if you wanted to have a greeting that's for like out of office, you could do that too. For this one, I'm just going to call it main greeting, then hit save. And you can see that I have that as my active greeting up here. And you can record another one, and you can flip-flop whichever one is active. So right now, our phone is set up perfectly to receive calls. If somebody calls me, it'll ring this phone number. If I want to make an outbound call and I want it to come from my Google Voice number, I just have to make sure that I'm not going to my regular phone app and I'm going to the Google Voice app. If I want to make an outbound call, I'm going to hit the Google Voice app. In the lower right, hit the little keypad, and I'm going to dial a phone number. I'm going to hit the green call button. So now it'll say that it's relaying your call through whatever number. And then I'm going to hit call. And it will display a weird number up on the top of my phone, but it's calling from my Google Voice number. So the person on the other side is going to see my Google Voice number when they receive the phone call. If I want to do a text, I'm going to hit messages and then hit compose a message. I could type a number up there or search for somebody in my contacts. So I just sent myself a text and I can click to the right here and I can see my voicemails. Awesome. So we got your Google Voice set up. If you're excited about that, I actually have 5 other tools I talk about in my video, top 6 time-saving tools that every business owner needs. So I check out that video next. I'll see you there.